within LBC involving the two presenters, James O'Brien and Shelagh Fogarty, to actually sabotage your show?
All the time I was hated, the most hated woman in Britain. Fatty Fogarty there would not sit in a room with me to hand over in a professional manner. My children don't have my last name anymore. My children don't have any physical relation to me on paper. I could be probably one of the biggest enemies this state has, because there's nothing anyone can take from me. Jihadis, two of them who practiced chopping my head off, came to my home and my children were in it.
Do you feel safe in the UK now?
Elon is very clear that Tommy Robinson is being persecuted, is a political prisoner. He was able to let Trump know that Farage isn't the guy, but Farage had been selling in to Trump. The moment that Trump was actually being inaugurated, where did I find Nigel Farage? Outside having a cigarette. So I took myself off for nearly 5 years to try and protect my children from me, you believe. And the only way to make the noise stop is to really do something dramatic. Having come out the other side, in life, our path is already set.
Katie, can we talk about the British mainstream media? Because it's almost like it doesn't realise it's in its death throes, which is quite fascinating, actually, given the establishment, the deep state, the Westminster class, they've all had their warning, given what's happened across the Atlantic, but they still think it's possible for people like you and for people like Tommy Robinson to be put on a list of they don't exist. They just don't exist. We're just not going to talk about them. It's not that we're going to give them tough coverage or challenge what they think or allow them to have debates with people who disagree with them. It is simply that you do not exist. And that was always a huge issue for me at GB News. And I'm interested in your view on this, because obviously there were people at GB News, the GB News outcasts, the GB News rejects. We've all gone now. Mark Stein, Lawrence Fox, Father Calvin Robinson. And we really believed that there was an opportunity to change something from within GB News. At the same time, you were banned. Tommy Robinson was banned. And the banned list at GB News is now so long. I mean, it even includes David Starkey, for God's sake. But do you think that we made a mistake by entering that system, by trying to create something with GB News? Was it a fundamentally flawed concept from the off?
No, not at all. I never have that view. So knowing that I'm on the banned list of all these places and seeing other people there, you were very successful there. Others were very successful. Lawrence, Mark Stein, my heart. Oh, I love the man. And I never felt in any way embittered about it, because my view always is this hold the line idea. For many people, GB News was a really great source of feeling like they could be heard. And my view is never get rid of those voices. My view is keep that going. It doesn't matter if I'm banned. Who cares about me? I don't really care about my own little voice or my say. Keep anywhere that there's an opportunity for us to be heard, keep those voices going. So I'm super supportive of that platform. But I think what's been interesting, I suppose, in terms of my little journey is having moved from The Sun to Mail Online, having LBC and all the rest of it and Fox News. I used to think I wanted to get back there. I used to think, oh, I'd really like a column. I would actually really like a radio show, but that's just my love. But now I know that that isn't what I want. What I want is to do what I'm doing now, which is to be able to be punching through, getting venues to hold and bringing people together, 1,500 people at a time. And my audience now is helping push back the cancel culture, because every venue that holds for my stand-up Batshit Bonkers Britain, the audience sell it out in about 2 minutes. And because they sell it out, it becomes so hard to cancel me. And then because our lot spend money, because actually they're a fun crowd, the bar has record bar taking. So all these leftists are like, oh, we don't have venues anymore. We don't have anywhere to put on our sad little play about disabled black paraplegic vegans that have a nut allergy. Oh, well, hello, come behind me. I will create the spaces for you. My crowd will support the theatre for a year. So you can have your sad little woke play. Maybe you could put on the assassination of Katie Hopkins again.
Again.
Ho ho ho! How we laughed. So my new power, and it is a superpower, is that having had everything taken, jobs, home, savings, bank accounts, my children, a couple of jihadis coming from my head. Having lost everything, I own nothing. My children don't have my last name anymore. My children don't have any
Wow.
physical relation to me on paper.
That's
I'm utterly
extraordinary.
free. And I am utterly fueled by this huge and growing audience that want me to be in front. And so I could be probably one of the biggest enemies the state has, because there's nothing anyone can take from me. And courtesy of your production team earlier there with my lesbian hair after my huge surgery. Oh my
There we
God, did
go.
you ever see anyone look more like Julian Clary? I was off my face on Oromorph when that picture was taken, missing my skull. But anyway, I'm also on extra time.
Yeah.
Like my epilepsy was supposed to get
Yeah.
me at 40, and now I'm 50, and I'm still here. So when this summer comes, you can expect to find me at the front, and I urge everyone, onwards, hold the line, and we march forwards towards the bastards. And if you get behind me, I'm pretty happy taking the arrows on your behalf.
Was it tempting to just say, pack it all in, move to the US full time, which you could have done?
Yeah, I mean, there was much more than that, honestly, Dan. Um, so I have to be careful because this hits a very personal part of
Mm,
me. But
mm,
I left the UK for 5 years with just a bag.
mm.
When the jihadis, two of them who practiced chopping my head off, came to my home, and my children were in it. And so I took myself off for nearly 5 years in order to try and protect my children from me. And there's definitely moments, Dan, where it's been much more extreme than that. As a rational person, you believe, and you'll have gone through some of this, the only way to make the noise stop is to really do something dramatic. Greg Wallace just talked about it. Many people have been through it. And having come out the other side, I know I'm so fortunate. And I truly believe, in life, our path is already set. And the freer you are and the more you throw yourself to it, the better your life becomes. So I've been so blessed to be kind of saved, and I guess that's why I'm so energized and so hopeful.
Do you
Because
feel
look,
safe in the UK now?
only in the sense I know I could be got and will be got, and I certainly think I will end up being put in prison, or I'll be end up being removed. But I don't. That doesn't make me feel unsafe. If anything, it makes me run a bit harder, train a bit harder, be more ready. I'm ready for whatever comes. I don't feel safe in the country, but I feel safe because of what I
Yeah.
believe. And I believe your endpoint is already set, and apparently mine isn't yet. I'm really,
Better bloody
really
not be. We've got
no,
a lot of
exactly.
work
And
to
look
do.
what happened. Look what happened to you and I. Look, you and I were sworn enemies probably in some weird way. And now we find ourselves
Yeah.
getting along just fine, trying to work the same cause. We don't have to agree. You don't think what I think necessarily, or me, you. And we find ourselves pushing in the same direction. And I think that's really, really glorious.
And I think there'll be a lot more of it too, actually. I want to ask about LBC, Katie,
Yeah.
because I have quite a fascination with that station. I now call it the Labour Broadcasting Company. I know some people call it the Lefty Broadcasting Corporation. I spent a bit of time there as well, nowhere near as much as you, but I was always really proud to be part of LBC because it was the era of it being the station that you got into a black cab in London and it was on. It was the voice of the people. And this extraordinary thing has obviously happened over the past few years, and it involves global and this hard push to the left, really driven by James O'Brien. But I was so shocked when you did your live show in London with Brogan and said that actually there had been this campaign within LBC involving the two presenters, James O'Brien and Shelagh Fogarty, to actually sabotage your show. And I've got to ask you exactly
Oh,
what went down with that, because to me, That's like the lowest of the low. I mean, whether you disagree with a fellow broadcaster, you don't try and sabotage their show. I've literally never heard of that happening before.
And it's funny, there's so many things, for the longest time, all the time I was hated, the most hated woman in Britain, I always accepted that I would never try and change people's mind about me. And so I never had or wished for a place where I would share what was actually going on because people don't care because they hate you. So what if you were having massive seizures or so what, don't make your problems someone else's, or so what if LBC was actually sabotaging your success. But I'll give you three examples now that I have all of the backup, I have all of the receipts for. Number one, a producer, my producer on my show, and you'll know you rely on your producers. She was incentivized to, at LBC, there is a phone bank. My phones were always full because it was a breath of fresh air show. She would pull the plug effectively on the phone line so that all phone lines would drop out. And on a talk-based show, the idea is that you fail because you don't know what to say. And eventually, a supervisor, one of the managers, was brought in, the guy that now runs LBC, to sit behind my producer because no one could understand why my phone lines kept going out. Number two, I had the most watched clip ever at LBC. It was a kind of rallying cry about Brexit. That was removed, deleted from the system so that it couldn't gain more clicks and be the most watched. And there was an investigation inside LBC, but nothing was found. And then finally, there was this kind of movement with James O'Brien, where he would try and place producers onto my show, and then they would book guests last minute that would show up at my show for me to interview that were, say, an illegal immigrant. And actually, it didn't matter because I can speak to anyone, I'm interested in everyone. But these were examples of the deliberate sabotage that I was facing, even as I had the most popular Sunday radio show. Um, it was a brutal environment. That woman there wouldn't. So the professional thing, you swap places in the studio. That's professional. It's how it's done. So you have a little conversation to bring the view. She wouldn't even enter a studio I was in, and she wouldn't swap time slots with me professionally as you're supposed to. She would go into a broom cupboard. I mean, God knows how she fitted in it. And she would do her start of her show there to hand over. So Fatty Fogarty there would not sit in a room with me to hand over in a professional manner.
Do you know the only person who ever did that to me was Matthew Wright, who is another appalling human being. And he hosted the 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. show at Talk Radio for a brief period. And I was doing drive time 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. And there's a bit of courtesy in radio, isn't there? That the person who's just finished the show clears out as quickly as possible because you want to let the new presenter in to get set up because they've got the 3 hours to do. You're finished. And so he was sitting around chilling with his guests. And I basically was like, I'm just going to come in and do my show. And he said he tried to kick me out the studio. Anyway, it says a lot, doesn't it? It says a lot what people are like in their handovers. But Katie, it has been such a pleasure to have you on Outspoken for the first time. We've come a long way. We've come a long way.
I need to say, don't I? I need to say hello to your daddy.
You do, because he is going to be so excited. He is a huge fan in New Zealand. He watches every day. And actually, you've probably been my most requested guest. So please do come back very soon, but we will do it in person next time.
Okay, that sounds good.
Katie Hopkins, thank you so much. And good luck for the rest of the tour. But I know you don't need it, given it is sold out. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected. And I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. I'm delighted to tell you I have now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, Virtual Private Network, to use the full official term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So I want to introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy to use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But what I love is that the benefits of Surfshark actually go way beyond keeping you safe online. It also allows you to access your favorite entertainment, news shows, news channels, and international streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, Peacock, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, the full works within seconds, as if you were watching from another country, which can be really handy if particular shows are geo-blocked. If you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. Plus, it's an insurance policy against creeping censorship in so many countries like France, which still to this day is blocking Rumble. How insane is that? You can watch anything, anytime, anywhere. True freedom, which I'm all about. A VPN can also save you money in these very tight times because you can get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. There are other benefits too. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices, meaning your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if this is your first time using a VPN. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, there's no risk here because Surfshark is so confident, and I use it every day, so I agree that it's the best VPN in the world, that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. If you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Katie, it is so good to have you. I know you hate Zoom, so I do really appreciate this, but I felt like it was an important week to have you on the show. So I'm so delighted you're here.
Oh, it's good to be back together again. You and I have had a long journey
A long and
through
checkered history, you might say.
yeah, from very similar beginnings to where we are now, which happens to be in a kind of similar place. So, just personally, I want to say to you, I congratulate you for having the stamina and tenacity to stick at it when so many try to take you down. I think it's really admirable, and I really applaud you.
Well, I so appreciate that. I really do. And it's interesting when I look back, I almost feel like my cancellation was a couple of years behind yours. You know, you left from the Sun to the Mail in very similar circumstances to me. You were then cancelled by the Mail and LBC in very similar circumstances to what I would be on LBC and GB News. And I do want to come to that actually, because I think what's happened to the mainstream media landscape in this country is quite something. But first,
Yeah,
Katie,
I just want to clarify there because your production crew, I'm obviously going to have to go and punch them in the face at some point for putting up those pictures at me at LBC. I just like to forget the lesbian years if we could, please. I had brain surgery.
Yes, I was going to say there was very good reason behind the short do. But look, there is this real debate on the right this week. You have come out in favour of voting for Reform UK, even if you think Nigel Farage is a monster or a snake. In the past hour, Rupert Lowe in the Daily Telegraph is saying Britain needs a plan, not a protest. Think twice before voting reform. So why is Rupert Lowe wrong?
Rupert Lowe isn't wrong. Rupert Lowe, I think, we see it in all walks of life. I see it very often. When people are hurt or they're upset, it can be something in their private life, it can be a health matter. People need to channel that fury. I mean, you and I have been through different sorts of this. You have to channel it. And it's a question of where you channel it. I so admire Rupert Lowe. I think he's been treated despicably. But at the moment, he's possibly channeling it not in the best manner, which is to go to the Telegraph 42 minutes ago and say, don't vote reform at any costs. And actually, I've read that article and it is a little contradictory because he says vote local, and yet he keeps talking about a grand strategy for the nation. And he keeps talking about his rape squad fundraiser, which is brilliant, but that isn't a local issue. So it's a kind of mixed message. He's hurting. I feel badly for him. But I think what's important is to acknowledge that Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib and others, yourself and others, have helped to drive the agenda that reform is now putting forwards. Nigel Farage has been obligated to talk about illegals because of people like you and Ben and Rupert. So there is much purpose in these other voices being out there. But I think we have to be very clear. And I made a little, this was straight off the top of my head, 10 seconds worth.
Love
I
it.
don't like Nigel because he screwed UKIP vote reform. I don't like Nigel because he's a snake. It's true. I don't like Nigel because he sold out the Brexit party. He did. Candidates didn't even know they were going to be screwed at the same time they were being screwed. I don't like Nigel because he treated Rupert Lowe horribly. He absolutely did, briefing the newspapers that Rupert had dementia. I don't like him because he's a maniac. He is. I've met him in person, and he has terrible teeth. He will not acknowledge Tommy Robinson. He will not. That's despicable. Tommy's being tortured. He flip-flops. He has Mohammed Yusuf as his banker. Yes, he does. That should never have happened. It goes on. This was off the top of my head. All the reasons that people will say, I can't vote reform. And I agree with every single one of them. But this is not a church. This is a casino. Voting is entering the casino, and you have to game the house. You have to game the system, right? Well done, production team. Yes, that's a photo of Tommy. And at this point, we have to game together, right? And the way we game this best is by doing what you've been advising, I believe, which is hold your nose,
Yeah.
know that all these things we just discussed are true, and at the same time, vote reform.
Yeah. I'm finding it hard though, right? Genuinely hard because I mean, Zia Yusuf actually came out and attacked me on X.
Yeah.
I've had very, very senior figures in Reform UK say to me, you are the enemy. And I find that utterly shocking and appalling, given this is a party that I voted for. And I feel like actually all I've done is provide them with the same type of coverage that is fair and has both sides of the argument. And I find it really, really weird that they are much, much more scared now of coming on a show like this than going on the British Bashing Corporation or going to speak to Woke ITV, because they know that it's that Stephen Edgington interview on GB News where he sort of cornered Nigel Farage, and that's where Nigel said mass deportations were impossible. They know that's caused a huge amount of damage. So I'm not going to say it's been an easy one for me, partly because I've just been so horrified to see the way the party has acted. Unlike you, I've never had a personal issue with Nigel. Actually, at GB News, he was a really supportive colleague of mine. Now, don't get me wrong, I know there's like a litany of other people on the right who have been treated appallingly, but this is not personal with me. It's about the country, and it's about the fact that if we have a so-called right-wing party that doesn't believe that mass deportations are impossible, then what the hell is the point? What the hell is the point?
Yeah, and I think that's so fair. And I think both you and I, we've long got past things that are personal. If we held on to things that were personal, we'd probably lock ourselves in a small room and never speak to anyone ever
Sometimes
again.
I'm tempted, Casey.
It's not a bad decision. And I was going to say, actually, at the point that Zia Yusuf and others are looking at you going, well, Dan Wootton, you are the enemy. I would totally take that if I was you. I would get naked in your bedroom. I would rub yourself in baby oil and go, yes, I, Dan Wootton, am the enemy.
That's not
because
a
they're
pretty
frightened.
sight. Trust me.
They're frightened of you, and they're frightened of your platform and your voice. And it's a detriment to them. I'm ex-military. And there's one thing you learn very early on at the Royal Military Academy is if you're facing the wrong way, you're going to fire at your own team, right? If you face behind you towards your team, that's a really bad idea. That's blue on blue. And that's what, unfortunately, reform, because they're kind of childish still. It's all about willy waving and the rest of it. They're facing inwards. So people like you, people like me, are actually the support they need. And instead of just holding the line with us, agreeing that we're different, we don't have to get along, we don't have to, appreciate each other's ways, but we need to face outwards because the enemy is always in front of us. And that's something that unfortunately reform will not learn, and they will keep infighting like this until the end of time.
And is it true, Katie, that they want nothing to do with you?
I think that's true for the majority of people on the planet, my darling. Yeah, I mean, you know personally all the things I'm banned from all media, was banned from GB News before it was even before the inception of the show, and certainly they want nothing at all to do with me. I'm very inconvenient because of my large US following. I'm very inconvenient because of the amount of people who are kind enough to listen to what I've been saying, and that I'm inconvenient for them as well because I know their backstory. I was there at the UKIP conference when Nigel was the big guy marching on into the room, and lovely Suzanne Evans, isn't it?
Yes,
That was,
great woman.
yeah, lovely Suzanne Evans was relegated to a back room, and I was in the back room with her. We were talking about an issue, and she wasn't allowed to go onto the main stage because Nigel couldn't have anybody else contend for the limelight. So I think in some ways, I'm just because I'm such an old cretin that's been around so long. I've seen Nigel in all these guises, and let me just give you a little bit of gossip because it's fun.
Love it.
I was just over in the US for the inauguration of the
Jealous.
greatest president of
Very
all time.
jealous.
I was there for 45, I was there for 47th. And interestingly, the moment that Trump was actually being inaugurated, the moment when people were in tears at the Hay Adams Hotel, people were glued to the screens, where did I find Nigel Farage? Outside on his phone having a cigarette. And for me, do you know, and I went over and I went, all right, Nigel. And I shook his hand. I forced him, and he looked like he'd just been sicked on by my dogs.
What did he say? What did he say?
Oh, you could see. I mean, I'm sure he has a fairly tiny member anyway, but I just feel like I saw it shrink into insignificance. He died because he was like, oh, that hag. How does she follow me around? How does she know I am? But more importantly, I was able to look him in the eye because at that moment, if you're an authentic Trump supporter or you're an authentic patriot, you're glued to this historical moment where the greatest president in history takes his moment when they tried to kill him and he survived. And Nigel's still out looking at Twitter, smoking a cigarette. And that to me that tells me more than I could ever say about the man. He is a snake. But as with all politicians, you have to choose your monsters. And that's what I say. Nigel is a monster, but reform for now can give the establishment the kind of kicking we need.
Yes. Do you think, Katie, that the moment it all changed within Reform UK was when Elon Musk withdrew his support for Nigel Farage and endorsed Rupert Lowe? That was all over Tommy Robinson, of course.
Ooh.
And is something going on between Nigel and the Donald? Because there is some sort of cooling, at least it looks like. Do you think Elon is maybe in Trump's air over this?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, really precise there. You could see it happening with Elon's increasing power within the Trump circle, which at one point there was pretty much absolute because of his unique ability to use his huge brain to solve multiple issues at the same time. I mean, it's a phenomena to see. I just love the man. Elon is very clear that Tommy Robinson is being persecuted, is a political prisoner, should be freed, and has made that very clear within the Trump top team. I've heard it said from very close allies to President Trump. And as a result, he was able to let Trump know that Farage isn't the guy that Farage had been selling in to Trump. Was very, very embarrassing for Nigel Farage to be called out like that by Elon. It was very embarrassing for the mask to slip. And from that moment onwards, Farage wanted revenge. I mean, this is Roman level stuff. This is the Caesars stabbing each other. From that moment, and even prior to that, when he saw the amount of popularity Rupert Lowe had, Nigel was plotting the demise of Rupert Lowe, and that's precisely what he's been able to carry out. And you can see why it's so despicable, and you can see why decent, ordinary people like us say, "I really struggle with this because we're people of principle." I would rather and have been deported rather than do what I'm told. I would rather be banned from a country, all of South Africa, than do what I'm told. I would rather stand and be spat on than give up what I know to be true. And that's why this really is a conundrum, because people would say, well, why would I play the system when the system's broken? But at this point, I think the casino analogy is helpful in that way.
Okay, so then what happens after Thursday then? So Friday, Nigel, let's be honest, there's going to be some type of reform quake. He's getting exactly what he wants, which is all of the attention. And critically, he's able to say two things. My centrist strategy has worked. And look, no one gives a damn about Rupert Lowe. I told you, he's just a non-entity. Everyone knows me. What happens then? Is there a
Yeah.
need for a new party? Is there any way to make reform what it needs to be?
Yeah, I think so we're going to have to endure, and it's going to be a bit gross. So have your sick bags at the ready. We're going to endure the Nigel gloat, and it's going to be big. There's going to be ha 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 pints, the ah ha ha, the smiling outrageously at everything. There's going to be multiple cigarette ah ha ha dart moments. There's going to be the Richard Tice cuddle-a-thon. We're going to have Zia Yusuf's face all over the place, which all of us could do without. Just let them have their moment, look away, have the odd gag reflex. It's perfectly entitled. However, he will believe he's won, and certainly he will have made the point that the old two-party system has now to be over. But the other very useful thing about the military is it teaches you that until you have your orders, right, until you know what you're actually supposed to be doing, you have a clear aim. We're going here, and this is the way we march. Off we go, and you start. That's what this is. Head in the direction that we need to go. We need to go in the direction of reform because we can't have the Conservatives like they are, and we can't have Labour. We cannot have Labour. But then what you do is you course correct. And that's where Ben Habib, brilliant. We need him. We need Rupert Lowe and get this rape gang inquiry underway. We need your voice. We need the people that will be course correcting with their voice, with their popularity, or actually with their authenticity. Because Nigel Farage may be able to fool many people, but what he can never, ever acquire is authenticity. And he will have to lean on other people like you, like Rupert, for that. Because you, me, Rupert, are authentic. We're who we are. Love us, hate us, whatever. You're only going to get what we actually are. So that's why I say to people, you can vote reform, holding your nose, because after we have a bunch of work to do. And I want to just, place this here. After and very soon, we will have Tommy Robinson out of jail.
Yes.
And the country is going to see something seismic happens when that man is released. The state of that man, when he walks out of the torture chambers he's been held in, should shake even his most fearsome adversaries to their core. And if you cannot come out behind that and support that man after what he's been through, then that will be, to your detriment. Farage has a much bigger foe about to be released. And this man has been made a martyr. And any time currently that we can say his name, I'm very happy to. And so Farage can gloat for 5 minutes tomorrow, but a storm is coming. And I know many, many British people and decent farmers and grafters know it. Many of us can feel it, in the energy of this country. Something is coming. I've been able to feel it for 5 years or more. It's super exciting. And personally, I'm here for it.
Hurricane Tommy is on the way,
And
Nigel.
Hurricane, yes, and Hurricane Great Britain. And you want to place two people side by side and work out who is the more authentic patriot, Nigel Farage or Tommy Robinson in his current state, a broken man who can't bear the sound of his own voice because he hasn't been allowed to speak. So a storm is coming. Let Nigel be the man on the beach having his little sangria because there's a tidal wave just offshore. And I'll be here blowing the winds of that tidal wave on shore. I'm sure you will be as well. There's a great summer ahead here in the UK.
Yes, and Tommy Robinson has big plans, of course, assuming he is able to get out of Wood Hill in one piece, which is, of course, the most important thing. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.